So we are kind of continuing with the sermon series that we've been working through, Paul's missionary journey in the early church. And this week we find ourselves in the city of Lystra. So I won't give you all of the fun facts that I found out about the city, although I have so many fun facts. I'll just give you a couple, one or two. One is just that it's kind of a rural and on the smaller side in terms of the cities around it, and that it was pretty typical culturally. So that just means that if you were to visit Lystra, you had a pretty good idea of what the surrounding culture was going to be like. The other big thing about it that becomes important for us today is that it was a very religious city. Not religious in the sense that they were already worshiping God, just religious in the sense that they had their own customs and beliefs that they were very, very devoted to. And when Paul shows up, he causes some tension because his focus is Jesus, worshiping only Jesus. So of course that causes some issues. Now, as I was preparing for today, I tried to remember the first time I heard that concept at all, worshiping only God and no one else. So between Sunday school lessons where I'm coloring in rainbows and Noah's arks, I was introduced to the 10 Commandments. So at the time, I grew up Catholic, so I had to memorize them and recite them back, all of them. So I'm 7, 8-year-old me walking around the house going, "Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt honor your mother and your father." And the first two that I felt like at the time, that's cheating. It's not really two, it's kind of one commandment if you think about it, but nobody listened to me. I am the Lord your God. Thou shalt have no other gods besides me. So I'm walking around the house. I am the Lord your God. Thou shalt have no other gods besides me. And then it occurs to me in my 8-year-old brain, wait a minute. So I remember I went back to Sunday school and I raised my hand. Miss Cindy, I don't know if that was her name. We're going to go with Cindy for today. Miss Cindy, it seems to imply that there might be other options on the list as far as what gods we are worshiping. And I would just like to point out that I have been waiting for a puppy for like a minute. So is there like a menu or a pamphlet or a list? I'm not saying I'm switching sides. All I'm saying is I would like to see the full selection before I make my decision. And that got me, after I got in trouble, to understand the meaning behind that commandment and the next one after it. Because what I was talking about doing was worshiping something other than God. And that was called idolatry. So then I had to walk around the house. Thou shalt not carve out an idol for thyself. But how did we get there? How do we get to talking about idols? Why is it still an important topic today? Well, we know that it goes back to the very beginnings of Scripture, right? Even when the law was first created. So if you don't know the story, right after being liberated from Egypt, after parting the Red Sea, witnessing all these miracles, you have the people of God waiting in the wilderness as Moses goes up to Mount Sinai just to get the law, to even get the law that we have to walk around and recite. And he comes back down in what seems like 15 minutes. If you're reading it, it feels like 15, 20 minutes. They have already built a golden calf to worship. They've already filled that space in their hearts with something else. And chaos ensues after that. He has to go back. I think he actually breaks tablets, has to go back up and get the other one, get him again. We've already put something else on that pedestal. And the Old Testament is full of a repeat of that story, that theme. All throughout the prophets' books, you have the prophets delivering God's message. Don't run after idols. Don't make an idol for yourself. And you have the people still kind of running away and doing it, still carving one. I almost imagine the prophets like the way you would talk to your dog. Drop it, no, put it down, no, don't eat it. Idols were kind of a part of the problem in the Old Testament. But by the time we get to the New Testament, is the problem solved? Because we don't hear Jesus talk too much about carving an idol. But what he does talk about is things that fill that space in our hearts where only God should be. Do you remember the story of the rich man? The man that came to Jesus and said, I want to follow you. I'm excited to follow you. And then Jesus says to him that you have to give everything away. Just give it all away, even the air fryer, everything. Everything's got to go. And he went away sad because that space in his heart, it could not hold both. It can't hold both the wealth or the financial security or money, whatever that was for him, and God. Jesus says over and over again that you cannot serve both. So what is our problem with idolatry? Is this an Old Testament problem, a New Testament problem? Is it our problem too? Are we difficult? Is that the issue? Turn to your neighbor and ask, am I difficult? Are we just difficult? I think not. I'm certainly not. I think it all goes back to our sense of needs. We all have needs. Even if you're one of those people, I'm fine, I don't need anything. Did you have water today? That's a need too. And that's okay, because it's part of being alive. We all have different levels of need. At the most basic level, we all need food and water. We all need the basics to stay alive. And then after that, we have a need for security, not just shelter, but security. Do we live in a place that is safe? Will I be able to go outside and feel safe in the place where I live? Or is it dangerous? Then the next level, we have social needs. We actually need connection with each other. We need other human beings. Even if we're introverts, that doesn't mean we don't need each other. It just means our kind of energy level for that is different, right? And then we have needs that have to do with ourselves, how we see ourselves. Am I good enough? Do I have a good sense of, am I okay? Do I have self-esteem? And then we have spiritual needs, connection with something larger than ourselves, a purpose. And our culture, American culture today, 2000, what year are we in? 26? I'm sure I wrote 25 last week on something. We have all kinds of ideas about how to fill those needs. Anything can take up space on that pedestal in our hearts, because we only have a finite amount of time, of energy, of space in our lives. If you think of your life almost like a pie chart or like a pizza, the slices have to go to something, and it will go to a limited number of things. You have limited energy, limited time. So there's things that we fill it with, technology and a lifestyle that we look up to, and aspiring to be like certain people that we look up to. Or even a career, trying to build an amazing career and security and wealth and building a good fit lifestyle. Or even well-meaning things like self-help, trying to improve upon ourselves, having a growth mindset. Now, hear me when I say these things are not bad things. These things are actually really good things. The question becomes, when does it turn from focus to obsession? When does it push Christ out of the center? And what do we do when it does? I'll give you an example from my own life, just because I'm already up here and I may as well. So when I was a student, I loved to learn, but I'm going to be really honest with you, I love to get an A. Who doesn't love that feeling? That, oh, another A, thank you, I'll take that. It became my entire focus. I didn't have time for my friends, or when I was with them, all I would think about was the next test or the next issue, the next exam. I didn't have time for my family. I'd be working the entire time I was home, visiting them from college. I didn't make that much time to have a life outside of studying when I was in college my first year or two. It completely took over my personality. I gave all the slices of the pizza to the idea of getting good grades. And it turns out that when you're an adult, it's really hard to measure success if all you did was focus on getting an A. You can buy gold stars and put them on your desk at work, but people will look at you. But because I had limited energy, limited focus, limited time, giving all of those things to grades and doing well, that took away from my relationship with God. In fact, it took over my prayer life, because all I would do when I talked to God was talk about how well I was going to do on the test, or talk about my anxiety around the test. It took over because it met a need for me, the underlying need. It's one of the questions we have to ask ourselves. What is the underlying need beneath the thing that has pushed God off the center? So for me, it was a sense of, I'm doing a good job, I'm doing well, I'm part of a purpose, and also I'm working towards a larger goal, a career that will help me meet the basic needs that I'm worried about. So in my mind, it made total sense. It didn't feel like I was pushing God away or pushing God out. It felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do. But Paul, you notice, when he visits Lystra, I wonder if he knew, they had their own entire culture and their own values, because believe it or not, before he showed up, people had things that they believed in. I don't know what cultural competency class he did or did not take. I don't think he took one. The people of Lystra were genuinely trying to follow their own faith at the time. So their reaction when they see Paul and Barnabas heal this person, their reaction, it must be our gods. It must be Zeus. It must be Hermes. It must be, the gods that we expected. And they start preparing to offer things to them. Our initial reaction to that might be judgment, because we have kind of the benefit of being in 2026 or whatever year it is, knowing what we know about God. But at the time, it made complete sense. And to make matters worse, to make it even worse, there was actually a myth at that time in Lystra that two gods would show up disguised as human beings, disguised as men. So they expected it. And when they saw them doing something miraculous, it made sense to them. Of course that would be. And our response has to be to worship. Because if they didn't, the legend said catastrophe would befall them. There would be a flood, there would be illness. They weren't making an idol or putting something else on a pedestal that they thought didn't belong there. They were following their own value system and meeting their own needs for security and for worship and for connection with something greater than themselves. And then Paul basically shatters their entire worldview, or tries to. He rejects their gift, their offering, immediately, the immediate reaction. And by the way, tearing their clothes, I hope he brought some extra shirts. I really do. He told them that their entire worldview and message is wrong. They have something on a pedestal to worship that does not belong there. He says, your impulse to worship may be right, but the thing that you have up there isn't. And then he tells them about Jesus, about the living God. And I love how he does it. I love to appreciate a sermon in the middle of my sermon. He goes back to the beginning, how the earth was formed in the first place. The whole reason why there is a Lystra, the whole reason that there is this whole region is because God created it. God created the earth, the sky, the water, everything you're standing on. And all those things that make you human, your need for food, security, safety, joy, connection with each other, all of that comes from God. The whole reason this man was healed is not because of some other entity. It's because of God. So turn your worship to that, to him, instead of all these other things. And their immediate reaction after denying, of course, is to get defensive. But why would it not be? Do you like being corrected? You don't have to turn to your neighbor this time. Just think to yourself, is it comfortable? Sit with that feeling for a minute. having somebody tell you that you're wrong. Even about small things. I don't love when people tell me I folded the towels wrong. To be totally honest with you, I don't. But I think having an emotional reaction, being frustrated, obviously we don't like the results of them being stoned. But to immediately get protective of their culture makes sense. I think the way we can identify with this is just to think of a small example, and one that's maybe a little less loaded. I like to think of it as culture shock. So years ago, this is about 15 years ago, I visited Spain when I was a student. It was part of a study abroad trip. And yes, I studied most of the time, but I also went out. They had amazing paella. It was a part of that time in my life where I studied too much, but I still made sure to enjoy myself. And when I was there, I noticed some things. There were just some lifestyle differences. Well, not bad, not good, just different. First thing I noticed is that people really didn't stay inside that much. The homes are smaller and people are out more. So even when you want to use the internet, again, this is 15 years ago. I don't know if this is still true, but 15 years ago, there were a lot of internet cafes. So if you wanted to use the computer, you weren't just using it and playing video games in your house. You would go somewhere, usually with your friends, to go and do that together as a group activity. And they had less food in their fridge because they would buy it fresh pretty much every day. They might buy 1 or 2 days worth, but they would go to the market every day. They would take a nap did y'all hear? They would take a nap in the middle of the day. Please sign me up. That's all I'm saying. Everything else, either way, but sign me up for the nap, please. And they would stay out later. The structure of their day was different. So at 10 p.m., they're starting to go to dinner, not winding down. And there's no eating in front of the TV. There was absolutely none of that. Now, nobody said to me or confronted me about my Americanized ways, the way that I did things. But I did feel just a little pinch, just a hair of conviction. And it made me look inward. It made me think, why do I do things this way? Why do we do things that way? Culture shock can kind of make you confront those, we might call them biases, or just ways of life that feel normal to us, and we kind of almost take them for granted. So even though no one was telling me I was wrong or doing something horrible, it still made me think. Now think how jarring it would be for Paul to show up and tell you everything you're doing wrong. Just pop up in your house, your city, your town, your place of work and tell you what things need to go different. So for us today, what does this mean for us today? Because for you and I, we're in a time of Lent, and we may not have decided we're going to give something up for Lent. Not everyone does that practice. So sometimes Lent is just this waiting period before Easter, and it can almost feel a little unsettling. But Lent is a time where we kind of can think about our relationship with God. We can use Lent to think about where are we within our relationship with God, wherever you are in that journey. So I want to kind of give you a little bit of a Lent roadmap. We still got time. We got 2 weeks left, about a week and a half, for what to do with this kind of message. And I think the first thing on there is just acknowledge that Paul's message about putting Christ at the center is maybe a little bit more challenging than it seems on the surface. It's not so much that we don't want to, it's just that we have these very real human needs. And the next thing to keep in mind is just that we serve a God of grace. We serve a God who is intimately aware of all the needs that we have. God sees that and is not apathetic to it. God is a God of hope. And because of that, that leads me to the third thing, which is just that we're not alone. We need encouragement. We need each other. That's one of our very human needs. Did you notice at the end of the narrative that Paul goes back in the city, not by himself, but with the other disciples? It can bring you back from a really dark place just to have each other. And the next thing is just, again, not saying to give anything up, but during this time, during this season, to take inventory, to let Paul's message land on us and allow us to take stock. See what things we might have at the center of ourselves on those pedestals that may not be God. What else is there? And what needs could those things be meeting? And then share those needs with God and with each other. And then the last thing is to just change one small thing. I used to be friends with I'm still friends with her. I used to know and work with this amazing dietitian. She was much further along in her career than me. But one of the things that she taught me was, because she used to work with dialysis and heart failure patients who genuinely had a lot of health realities going on. And her advice to them and to me was just that a lot of these diets or things that people tell you to do with your health are wonderful and they sound great. And people want to do this fast or that fast or this cleanse and this amazing new thing that's going to completely change the way your body functions. And all of those things may be true. Again, not saying these are not positive things. But her advice was just to change one thing at a time. Because what happens to us as human beings is we can kind of back ourselves into a corner. I either have to change it all right now or change nothing at all. It's very all or nothing, black and white. But what she taught me, change one thing. Add broccoli. Add 1 serving of broccoli a day. If that's all you do, you change one thing. Then see how that goes. Add something else. So I want to invite you to not back yourself into the black and white corner and just change one thing. In these last 2 weeks of Lent, I want to invite you, instead of giving something up, to add something in. 3 to 5 minutes of prayer, maybe being present in worship for one more service, maybe journaling, maybe sharing with a friend, sharing your faith story with a friend. Friends, as we prepare for the joy of Easter morning, I hope that this message reminds you that we serve an amazing and loving God who is with us in the chaos, who knows our needs intimately, our hearts and our minds, and who is continuing to help us prepare to put Christ at the center of our lives. In the Lord's name we pray. Amen.